You are now listening to Serious Minds RNTV with your host, Professor Griff. The call-in number is 516-654-7688. That's 516-654-7688. This is Professor Griff, and this is Serious Minds RNTV. Serious Minds for Serious Minds. Seriously. The Serious Minds Brain Tonic was created to sharpen the mind by protecting cells and increasing neurotransmitters associated with learning and memory. This is the Serious Minds Brain Tonic. The Resurrection Formula. This male reproductive tonic elixir is the resurrection you've been looking for. It is a stimulating sexual tonic with mild androgen-like effects that is nourishing to the reproductive system. You can order them at www.professorgriff.me and www.seriousmindsinstitute.com. Just call 678-557-2919. Your health is your wealth. Peace.
Do your children love learning? At the Institute for Self-Mastery, we've been homeschooling for 10 years. We didn't just hop on this because of what's going on now. Check us out, the Institute for Self-Mastery, ismhomeschool.org. Peace.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In today's climate, being safe is priority number one. With crime on the rise, we're all left with this magical question: how can I be safe and protect my family? Well, Professor Griff is offering a course that's similar to laser tag, but it's for adults. This safe and firearm-free course will train you in real-life scenarios so that you can avoid being a victim. This course is growing in popularity as a date night out. Add fun and excitement back into your love life, and the reviews are incredible. For more information, call this number below.
Peace, greetings. This is Professor Griff. Of course, y'all already know this is Professor Griff right here on Serious Minds RNTV. Thank y'all for joining me at the 3 o'clock hour, no longer the 9 o'clock hour, only on Melanin Mondays Medicine with Aisha Ra. All right, today we got a special guest. We're going to be talking about a very interesting subject. We're talking about pulling the sheet off this whole academic kind of thing. And the brother that I'm going to bring on, we're going to tackle this particular subject and dive into this particular article, is the Truth Minister, Minister Paul Scott. So I don't want to belabor the point. Make sure family that you stay tuned and check in with all of the classes that are going on. And just keep in mind before we bring the brother on, Saturday's class has been changed to Sunday. So if you've signed up for the firearms training class for Saturday at the Georgia Firing Line, keep in mind we changed it to Sunday. All right, without any further ado, just make sure I'm greeting everyone. Shout out to the Serious Minds listeners on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. Shout out to everyone on IG as we introduce our guest, our good brother, Minister Paul Scott. Can you hear me, good brother?
Yes, sir. How you doing, good brother?
I'm maintaining. Let me adjust my microphone because somebody's telling me, Griff, you're not coming in loud enough. So I'm going to adjust my microphone. I might even move it tonight so it's a lot closer. All right. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure everything is good and everything is clear. Hold on 1 second, good bro.
Yes, sir.
I am going to try this. And let me just test this out real quick before we get flowing because I don't want to do it in the middle of the flow.
All right.
I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to see if it'll allow the screen to show you and I. And the article. Is it all right if I keep the article up and talk?
Indeed. Indeed.
All right. Cool. So without any further ado, to our listeners, shout out to Quan. Quan, what's good with you? Quan on deck. Quan says hit the like button, the share button, and share fam, yada, 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 whoopie whoop. I really appreciate you, Quan. Today's guest, ladies and gentlemen, at very, very short notice, but a lot of times when you're always on point, people can call you at the moment's notice and we're still making it happen. Our good brother, the Minister of Truth, Minister Paul Scott. Greetings, good brother. How you feel, man?
We say all praises be to the Creator, all power to his people. In the name of Yahshua, the Black Revolutionary Messiah, I greet you, my brothers and sisters, in the spirit of truth and the words of peace. Shalom Aleichem. Honored to be on your program, good brother.
Oh, alaikum salam. Good. Give thanks, good bro. Really appreciate that. Today we're going to be talking about pulling the sheet off of the academic onslaught. I remember back in the day when I first read this, when you sent this to me a couple of days ago, I believe, it reminded me of Tony Martin and what Tony Martin went through. It reminded me of not only his work, but the backlash to what Tony Martin put out there. And I just said to myself, okay, this is an interesting conversation. Let me see if the brother will come on, and he's on. So for the people that don't know you, give the people an overview of who you are and some of the work that you have done.
I'm just a soldier. Of course, a student of Professor Griff. If Griff hadn't done what he did, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I want to be clear. If Griff hadn't done what he did, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So I'm just a soldier, servant of the Most High.
Right.
Done some hip hop writing in the past for various websites. Been on a couple of talk shows across the country. None as important as this one, though. And founder of the Black Messiah movement based in Durham, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And shout out to the Final Call as well, because this article right now is also running in the Final Call. So much respect to the Final Call. So pick up a Final Call and you can read this article.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into the article. Why is it that you chose to give a critical look at the attack on the critical race theory? And just explain to people basically before we get started to lay a base, what is critical race theory?
Okay, and that is a good place to start, brother, because critical race theory is the idea of, in layman's terms, approaching academics and law from the viewpoint of the oppressed. It's kind of like the academic equivalent to Black liberation theology,
right?
That Dr. James Cone talked about, viewing it through the eyes of the oppressed. And the reason why I picked it up is because there isn't really an African-centered approach to this. You hear the right-wing correspondents, the conservatives, the think tanks, they're talking about as Marxist, It's blaming white people for everything that's wrong in the world, which is basically true. But I digress. But we need an African-centered point of view, because basically this is what's going to happen. They're going to keep us out of the conversation. It's going to be between the Black academics and the conservatives. So we're going to have to bogart our way into this conversation. And again, we need a Black perspective, like Dr. Bobby E. Wright taught us. We need a Black social theory. So when approaching this whole idea of critical race theory, we got to come up with a Black perspective, brother.
Right. All right. So just explain to people who is James Cone, because this is serious minds. And we always say serious minds attract serious minds. But a lot of times people are coming on here to seek knowledge. A lot of times people are just not there and they just don't know. So you quote James Cone. Who is James Cone? Can you give us a book? Can you give us a quote?
Dr. James Cone, he wrote the book Black Power, Black Theology. And what he did, he is one of the master teachers of Black liberation theology. That means using the scriptures to uplift our people. He's one of the masters of that. He's not the only one, but he's one of the most well noted of that. Black theology, Black power, Dr. James Cone. And I see the balance or the direct correlation between what he taught and critical race theory.
Right. Okay. So now how is it that you are picking up aspects of not only his work but other people's work to incorporate it in what you're doing in reference to Black theology and interweaving it in morphing it into and with Black power? So Black theology and Black power, how is that intertwined? What does that marriage look like?
It looks like, the basic definition of seeing the world through our eyes. For those, I know you have the smartest viewers on the planet, but so excuse me for going back elementary, but for those who aren't familiar with Black liberation theology, that is what Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey practiced, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad practiced, Dr. Khalid Muhammad practiced, Dr. Shaka Musa Barashango, and many others. That's using the scriptures to liberate our people.
Right.
So we also have to use the same thing for education. Everything we use has to be used to uplift our people. Now, with this idea of critical race theory, they're approaching it from the white perspective. But there are two books we got to use. Well, actually, two books. One that I gave away to my nephew, give my book back. It's called, it's Dr. Neely Fuller's book. His Cold Book Against White Supremacy. It's the long title. And also the ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Any approach to critical race theory can't be based solely on Marxism. It has to be based on those two books. And if you want to throw in another one, Dr. Bobby E. Wright, The Psychopathic Racial Personality. That is the foundation. That's what's going to separate our perspective of critical race theory from everybody else's. Again, they're getting it confused because, as you know, Karl Marx really didn't deal with race. The problem with Marxism and its political cousin or political manifestation, communism, is they did away with race. They said it's not about race, it's about uniting the workers of the world, which is a false equivalent to what they're trying to fight against under the guise of critical race theory. They're using critical race theory as a dog whistle, a rebel yell, as we say in the South, to rally their troops to fight against us. They're saying that the South is going to rise again, but we're going to say, not on my watch. No, sir.
Right. So if the South rises again, as they say, what would that mean to Black people if the South rises again, as opposed to the North rising again?
Most of the attacks of critical race theory are happening in the South. Texas, Tennessee, Arkansas, and out west.
Right.
So, and you're right, brother, there's really no difference as far as the oppression of African people between the North and the South. Like Malcolm taught us, anytime you're below the Canadian border, you're in the South.
Right.
To paraphrase. But it's more nuanced in the South because you're dealing with the white evangelical Christians, you're dealing with the Bible Belt, who hold tremendous power and influence in the Southern and Midwestern states.
Right, right. Okay, cool. So you mentioned Karl Marx, and I pulled it up so that people can see it. Karl Marx was a German philosopher during the 19th century who worked primarily in the realm of political philosophy and was a famous advocate for communism. His notable work was Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto. In my readings and studies and research, and I'm not kicking up any dust with anyone or any group of or any school of thought, Karl Marx did not write the Communist Manifesto. A group of people wrote it and put Karl Marx's name on it because the Communist Manifesto was already out. It wasn't until years later that they even put Karl Marx's name on it. All right, that's just a side note. So a lot of times when people come on, they mention names and mention books. We want to be able to give people a clear see because, Paul, and I'm sure you can understand this, after this talk, people can have no more excuses that they didn't understand.
Right,
We're
right.
making it plain today.
Indeed.
All right? We're making it so plain that a fourth grader can understand. All right? We have computers and cell phones and tablets at our disposal. Let's use them to look up this information so we can make it applicable to our lives and our consciousness. All right, so now let's dive into the article. It says there are, in essence, captives of particular ignorance, the ignorance of not knowing that they do not know. What is that they do not know? Yet speak as if they know what it's all about and what they need to know. It profounds, it baffles my brain. The people that don't know always talk like they know.
Right.
Then again, they really don't know. Because if you pull back one layer and ask them some questions, they get offended and want to attack you.
Mm-hmm.
So clarifying some things. So Dr. Malefe Asante, the Afrocentric idea, all right, who gave us that particular quote. So what prompted you to write this? And let's give us an idea of what's this article about.
Yeah, this article is an African-centered approach to critical race theory.
Right.
I didn't see a lot of African-centered work dealing with that, so I made the correlation between the attack on Black history specifically and critical race theory, because critical race theory is a broad term. It's a dog whistle. It could apply for anything that goes against the white Christian evangelical movement or Anglo-Saxon ideology could be lumped under critical race theory. There's some things under critical race theory as African people we don't want to be lumped together with. So we have to make it clear. We're talking about African people. African people. Now, the only connection really between Marxism and critical race theory is the idea of dialectical materialism. The idea of dialectical materialism. Everything is an opposition. One of the teachings out of that school is the seeds to the destruction of capitalism it lies within its own contradictions. I'm going to repeat that one more again. The seeds of the destruction of capitalism lies within its own contradiction. That is what they're afraid of with critical race theory. Now, I wouldn't say study Karl Marx to get an African-centered view of the definition. I would say Kwame Nkrumah and Kwame Ture. They will give you an African-centered approach to not only the basis of critical race theory and dialectical materialism, but also with socialism in general.
Okay. All right. So, why is it that this conversation, from the perspective of looking through the lens of Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, why would we understand this better through their lens as opposed to anyone else's lens?
because starting with Neely Fuller, Brother Neely Fuller,
Uh-huh.
he gave us the ultimate definition of Black critical race theory. If you don't understand white racism and white supremacy, everything else will only confuse you. That's Neely Fuller.
Right.
Also, he said that the only form of racism that exists in the known universe is white supremacy. Those two definitions are the key to understand critical race theory from an African-centered point of view. And of course, Dr. Francis Cress Welton gives further examples of how that's manifest in Black culture.
Mm. Okay, so can we honestly say then, from the perspective in which we need to understand this thing in order to come out with an outcome that's suitable for Black people, right? Would you say, approaching critical race theory, how deep do we have to go to unlearn to learn? Because there's Black studies programs all across the country, but do they serve the needs of Black people when it comes to critical race theory?
Good question, brother. And here's the problem. Here's what we're encountering. The reason why the conservatives and Billy Bob and Jimbo and Kellyanne and them are winning this argument is because their think tanks, the Heritage Foundation, the John Locke Foundation, and the rest of them are directly tied with the grassroots. Their think tanks, their scholars are directly tied to the grassroots.
Right.
Our scholars, besides you, Griffin, and one or two others, Doc, a couple of other people, very few, keep the information to themselves. If you're talking about the Black scholars and the school, colleges and universities, they talk about these issues amongst themselves. It doesn't trickle down to the everyday. It doesn't trickle down to the hood. Our task, brother, as you always teach, we have to make this relevant to the hood. We got to make this relevant to the masses. And that's why they're winning and many times we lose. That's what the purpose of the article, to make it relevant and bring it home, or as Malcolm used to say, to make it plain.
Okay. So to get to the root, we must start with the uproar surrounding the establishment of the first Black Studies Department at San Francisco State University in 1968. Let's underline 1968. There's a lot of things that went down in 1968 involving such notable figures as Dr. Nathan Hare. Very important. Julia and Nathan Hare. Why should we, the purpose for this paragraph, what is it? It says, there is to date no other discipline so closely aligned with the social protest, student activism, and violence as students, as opposed to what George Murray set in motion as the former Minister of Defense of the Black Panther Party, Nathan and Julia Hare, and other people that we can mention. Why is it that there's no other discipline so closely aligned with this social protest, especially today? Who would you align with this? Who would you say comes close to this?
Besides what a couple of brothers and sisters on YouTube are putting out information, very few people. But we need cultural continuity. Cultural continuity. We can't look at our history in segments. So we have to look at 1968, right after the death of Martin Luther King, all the uproar that happened in this country. And, you know, they put the money together, and really different foundations said that was better. They would rather have us in the schools than in the streets. They would rather have us in the schools than in the colleges. But brothers and sisters like the Hares put together these Black colleges, these Black student unions actually fought for Black studies to be included in these universities. That's why it's critical, brother. Started on the West Coast, spread throughout. They didn't, and it wasn't an easy task. They had to bring those things out. They had to bring the guns out. So just like then, you know, Malcolm used to say the ballot or the bullet. We got to say the book or the bullet.
The book or the bullet, okay? All right, in 1987, Molefi Asante wrote The Afrocentric Idea, which serves as the premier exercise in apologetics, explaining the need for African-centered education in universities. Immediately following the rise of conscious hip-hop by groups such as Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions, and X-Clan, who preach the gospel of Afrocentricity to the proverbial streets, but quickly spread to the mainstream America, courtesy of shows like MTV, Raps, and I can add on and say Soul Train and other programs that was going on at that time. How critical and what role did hip hop play in influencing people like the Molefi Asantes and other people?
Mm-hmm. Hip hop made it relative to the streets. What you all did and are still doing, and the other groups made it relative, and that scared white America.
Right.
That scared white America because if you can remember, right after the LA rebellions, when these brothers went on television, they were quoting Malcolm X, they were quoting Kwame Ture, and the news reporter Ted Koppel and all of them would say, "Well, where did you get this information?" They would say, "Hip hop."
Right.
Hip hop taught me that. So it's important that we reestablish that lineage to let us know how important and how critical, how crucial hip hop is to the maintaining of the African mind. And maybe, just maybe, if we reach back, we can move forward.
So why did it scare white America that much, to the point where they not only attacked hip hop, they attacked academia. They sought to set guidelines and limits on what you can say and do in Afrocentric programs across the country as far as colleges and universities. And then what role did the HBCU play in all of this?
Let me answer the first question first.
Okay.
In every city, the most hood area is surrounding the HBCUs. You go to Atlanta, you go to Durham, you go to any of these places, Raleigh. Many times when you have the HBCUs, it's in the middle of the hood. There's something wrong with that picture. Our HBCUs have to connect with the grassroots. Many times they become elitists. They want to keep the information to themselves. And there are even stories, brother, that they even warn the freshmen when they come to these campuses not to mingle with the brothers and sisters in the hood.
Right.
We got to break that down. But one of the things the hip hop did, it bypassed the academic circles and took the information straight to the streets.
I think that's critical because coming from quote unquote rap songs, coming from MCs, coming from just hip hop in general, it was it had to be controlled. And if it wasn't controlled, then it was going to get out of control. You understand what I'm saying? And I think but because people were getting a different kind of education from rap songs, from hip hop songs, and then I think it put pressure not only on Black academics, it put pressure on white controlled academics, if I could put it that way. What was going on in the streets before we move on to the next part? What was going on in the streets at that particular time that gave birth to a different kind of consciousness to stand up to a Mary Lefkowitz when she gave us Not Out of Africa?
Rebellion, brother. Virginia Beach, Tawana Brawley. A lot of these rebellions were happening. And the difference between the rebellions back in the 80s and early 90s and today is that these were Black controlled. There was no Black Lives Matter. These were there was no corporate financing of these rebellions.
Right.
These were the everyday brothers and sisters influenced by Public Enemy, influenced by X-Clan, influenced by Boogie Down Production, who took that information and used that as the battle cry. Or like you all say, War 33 and a third.
Right. And I think, but because the trumpet was blown. I think the
Mm-hmm.
information was getting out. And I remember slightly before that period of time, they had announced that there was no speakers or ministers from the Nation of Islam was allowed on any college campus to speak.
Mm-hmm.
During this time, scholars such as Tony Martin, Leonard Jeffries came under intense attack for using books such as the Nation of Islam's Research Department's Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews to discuss the Jewish involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, giving a new perspective on the concept of Black and Jewish alliance that had been propagated since 1915. These conversations kept coming up. Not to talk about that directly, but I understood what Tony Martin was going through. I understood what Leonard Jeffries was going through. Smalls had guided me through it. And other brothers and other professors and other elders was guiding me through it to understand. So when Mary Lefkowitz came out with this Not Out of Africa, and I saw how our now elder Dr. John Henry Clark just smacked her up and whipped her, I said, okay, there it is. It gave birth to a different kind of energy, a radical energy, not even using theology, not even using scripture, but on an academic level, in academia. This was monumental to someone like me when I started seeing these debates in which they would, after that time, and after Khalid Muhammad debates and other Ashwa Kwesi and other debates, they wouldn't even come to the table to debate Black people. But at that particular point, let me get to my question, they sought to destroy Black people, not let us on the college campuses, controlling what was said in the hip-hop songs, controlling information and censoring us like they're doing right now. So how did and how do we, like you're one of the ones leading the charge, how do we get the information out?
By any means necessary. Whether it be YouTube, social media, Facebook, IG, every weekend in my city, for the last 15 years, we go out on the street and we pass out free Black history books and we teach on the streets, free books to anybody who walks by. So there are multiple ways of doing it. We have the ability. The question is, do we have the will and do we have the courage?
I think those of us that dare to have the courage and the will need the support from those that may not have it but do want to support. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And when I say support, I don't only mean money. Like there's a few people like Quan S, Johnny Taylor, Double B, Great Filibuster, people that I can name off the rip that come on this platform right here and always give, always lend their support, whether it's research, whether it's moderating, whether it's giving up their money and their time. Those individuals play a very key and important role to someone like Professor Griff's life and my work. I can't even tell my story without mentioning them. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? But there have been people like them before them. Am I right or wrong?
Indeed.
Some of which we will never know who these individuals are. I think what we've been saying then is coming to fruition right now, and we're actually seeing with our two physical eyes what we've been saying all the time, because now social media and cell phone technology have allowed us to videotape it, upload it, so the world can see it. Mm-hmm. And what you just said. So now, since 2013, the murders of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Deontay Wright, and many others, was inevitable that the racial unrest that followed would evade the curriculums of the public school systems and now even states and classrooms across the country. Can you speak to the fact that well-to-do, middle-class, angry Republican white folks are now in Texas, those that are responsible for the textbooks are trying to rewrite history and write slavery out of history?
Indeed. Not only are they're either trying to write it out or justify it.
Okay.
Either write it out or justify or make you think it wasn't so bad.
Right.
You know, they can't, you know, it's a historical fact. They can't totally wipe it out, but they can make you think that it wasn't so bad. Now, one of the things that I want everybody to, Dr. Asa Hilliard told us to read a book called The Power of Ideas. It's about the Heritage Foundation, The Power of Ideas. Get this book. It's cheap, it's readily available. It talks about how the think tanks actually put out talking points to the masses. See, when they say things like critical race theory, again, that's a dog whistle. That's a dog whistle. The definition has no bearing on how they're using it. So we have to be very clear to study how the think tanks use these talking points. And I say all that to say this. One of their talking points, when they're dealing with history, they only have like 5 talking points. They only have 5 talking points. Now, the Power of Ideas is the one about the Heritage Foundation. It should be Power of Ideas, and it's subtitled The History of the Heritage Foundation. But they only have a few talking points. And one of the talking points they use is, how can you blame us from slavery? How can you blame us for slavery if your own African ancestors enslaved African people? But there's a simple answer to that. In the book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, it states that.
By whom? Walter Rodney?
That Walter Rodney, thank you.
All right, I got you.
It states that the slavery that existed in Africa was like the feudalism that existed in Europe during that same period. There was not chattel slavery. We're not talking about the Mount Arthur. We're talking about something more comparing that you can compare to European feudalism than what they did to our ancestors. And Griff, I'm going to grab that book.
Okay, that's cool. While he's grabbing the book, this is Minister Paul Scott. If you're just tuning in, right here on Serious Minds Are in TV. It's The Power of Ideas. Okay.
Yeah. And it's by Lee Edwards.
Lee Edwards?
Yeah. L-E-E Edwards. This is the book that Dr. Asa Hilliard told us to read. And I suggest you read it because Jay-Z had a famous line that I always use. Y'all admire the one who got shot. I admire the shooter. Rewind that. Y'all admire the one who got shot. I admire the shooter. That means that what's been done to African people, take 2 steps back. Don't get caught up in your emotion, but ask yourself, how did they do it? Always take 2. I put the emotion aside. Whatever they've done to us, I put emotions aside, and I study how they did it. Because unless we study how they did it, they'll do it again.
Right. So even if we study how they did it, do we have the infrastructure, the mindset, the think tanks, the power to come together to say, okay, we know the trick. Now, how do we kind of deal with it? How do we kind of neutralize it?
We have the ability to do anything. The question is, do we have the will? And that has always been the question. Do we have the will to do it? Have we been so broken down by the system that we no longer have the will to fight back? Or are we to the point where we can't independently think our way out of it? We have to have white liberals to lead us instead of leading ourselves.
Right. So at this point, do we in 2021, a lot of people voted for Donald Trump, and then when they got what Donald Trump came to give them, they were shocked. Why were you shocked when you kind of knew what the man was bringing to the table? And then once Donald Trump revealed what the plan was and who he really is, it left black people in a fix and left us in a ditch to the point where we couldn't dig ourselves out of it. Now, here we are simultaneously trying to dig ourselves out of it, and at the same time trying to deal with the madness that Sloppy Joe and silly Kamala is giving us. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
How is it that black people can maintain themselves, fight off racist white supremacists, fight off those race soldiers that are dressed in blue or army uniforms,
Mm-hmm.
Deal with a pandemic, and do all of this at the same time, and not be angry, and not be angry with one another, or not be angry at the government or whatever. At the same time, trying to figure out how do we defend ourselves on an everyday level. How do we do that? I know that's a lot, but
no, we have to be grounded, spiritually grounded and culturally grounded. That's why history is so important. Going back to what Dr. Bobby E. Wright taught us,
right.
We need a black social theory, a foundation, a strong foundation. If you use the teachings of the Honorable Marcus Garvey as your foundation, that would bypass all the political madness. Using Marcus Garvey, read Dr. Tony Martin's book, Race First. That would get, and the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. These will give you a foundation on which to build. So once you have a strong foundation, whatever your spiritual ideology is, once you have a foundation, you're not so quickly moved by whatever wind blows.
I think what Tony Martin gave us in reference to Race First, and it's very critical. When you talk about the whole ideology of our good brother Marcus Garvey, a lot of us may talk it, a lot of us may wear the button and the t-shirt and get the bumper sticker, but they don't understand what Tony Martin went through to establish this degree of truth, not only with this book, but the Jewish Onslaught and other books. We may wear the Marcus Garvey t-shirt. We may want to do Black August and all this other kind of stuff, but do we really know and truly understand Marcus Garvey? Do we truly understand the thing that he set in motion? Because if we did, we would fill the ranks of the UNIA. We would fill the ranks, or we would fill our heads with what Marcus Garvey gave us via Tony Martin. Back to your article, just to kind of sum it up. Our task must be to create spaces where students are free to learn and educators are free to teach the truth regarding the Black experience. This is the thing that they're trying to set and put in law right now, good brother. I'm not sure if you heard. They're trying to make it against the law for schools to teach slavery, Black history, white privilege, and these kind of things.
In North Carolina, just yesterday, the Education Committee in our House of Representatives passed a bill that would do just that.
And what's the name of the bill? Do you know?
HB, I think it's 234, if I'm not mistaken.
HB or HR? Hold on, it's HB.
HB, it's local. It's North Carolina.
Okay, cool. All right, hold on. The HB 234 bill relative to freedom of speech and association on college campuses. I think that's it.
For North Carolina?
College campuses, New Hampshire. Let me go back to North Carolina. Pardon me. Legal session, I don't think they're giving it to
But you know what?
First by state.
Yeah, it is House Bill 234. But let me tell you what they did, Brother Griff. There was a bill that was dealing with charter schools. Nothing to do with critical race theory. They gutted that bill, took the charter school information out, put anti-critical race theory in there, and fast-tracked it. So this just happened yesterday.
Right.
When they have a determined mind, when you have a determined mind, it doesn't take you long to put things together. We're talking about in 24 hours, brother. They created a bill, stuffed it in the coffin of another bill, and are now pushing, as we speak right now, pushing it through the House of Representatives.
Okay, but look at the dichotomy here. Look at the list. All right, I'm trying to. Let me put it this way. I didn't learn critical race theory on the college campus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I went to college for 2 weeks. Then I turned around and years later got my degree online.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't used it yet. I'm just saying to you, I didn't get that on the college campus. Everything I got in reference to critical race theory happened in my home.
Mm-hmm.
Happened at the lecture at the youth center. Happened in the ciphers that I went to in New York. Happened with relationships with elders and other brothers and sisters in different organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So this bill wouldn't even affect me unless I'm invited to the campus to speak, which I'm rarely invited to speak.
Well, actually, this bill is dealing with K through 12.
Okay.
It's really dealing with K through 12.
Right.
They're dealing with elementary schools. They want to colonize elementary schools. They're trying to create, it is House Bill 234, but you're going to have to Google it. It's in Newsweek, actually, too. Newsweek is carrying it. You're going to have to Google the actual article, because if you look the bill up, it's going to tell you something about charter schools. Okay. That's how they did it real sneaky, brother. They did it, unless they just changed it. Yesterday, when you looked it up, it'll tell you charter school. It mentioned nothing about critical race theory, but they fast-tracked it and replaced that bill with the anti-critical race theory bill. I was amazed how they did that. Again, y'all studied the ones who got shot. I studied the shooter.
So we can quote the Jay-Z's of the world,
mm-hmm.
but is he part of the problem or the solution?
Brother, that's a 2-hour show. And we could go there, but I tried to, in my younger years, I used to go hard on hip hop. And I still do to a degree. But Kwame Ture, he gave us a mission. How can we unite all African people? So can the brother be forgiven for the stuff he's done? I don't know. But moving forward and to put in practical applications, what can we do knowing all of that? How can we use that to move us forward?
I think those particular individuals have to want to be included. But if your words and your actions work against the legitimate aspirations of the people, we have no use for you.
I agree.
And I think this is the reason why Professor Griff was birthed and born on and put on this planet, because my mission is to deal with handkerchief-fed, boot-licking, Uncle Tom-ass Negroes. Plain and simple, bro. And you're not going to keep doing these things to our people and think everything is going to be fine. It's not going to be fine, not as long as the Creator give me a breath. It's not going to be fine. There's even lower levels that you can go and take sun people and put them in the land of the snow. How does that work?
Andre 3000 gave us that on black ice.
Right. So if what Andre 3000 is saying is absolutely correct, then it nullifies the Jay-Z's of the world. It nullifies bootlicking Negroes that want to sell their people out. We have no use for these people at all. At all. Listen, Marcus Garvey said, and I quote, "There's some people that we can't deal with them and accept them not here or on the African continent. There's some black people we ain't got no use for." And I just say, humbly say, give them to Professor Griff. If we can't reform them, all right, if they're not willing to be reformed, then away with them. Plain and simple. And I know I'm speaking very brash and very upfront today, because I'm not going to mince words with these people. All right? Plain and simple. Black people are trying to get free of the spirit and the mindset of these white supremacists that want to control us and murder us. We cannot have black people, so-called pseudo-black people, Negroes and Negresses, constantly selling our people out while we sit idly by on this proverbial hamster's wheel and watch Negroes do that to us, and we think it's okay because they make some fucking rap songs. Hell no. Not gonna happen on Professor Griff's watch. And I'm serving notice to these Negroes. Plain and simple. That's the way it's going down.
And brother, you have earned the right to say that. You have stood on your square, as they say, all for decades, brother. So you have earned the scars. You've earned the right to say exactly what you just said.
Give thanks. I'm not worried about them liking Professor Griff. They don't like my ass anyway. Do you understand what I'm saying? Most of them rarely want to have a conversation with me. All of them have my phone number. When you speak up and you speak out and speak for your people, I'm not coming by myself. I got an army of people behind me saying, listen, fuck with Griff, you have to fuck with us all. Touch one, you touch all. I'm not coming at these people in a disrespectful way. I'm just saying, look, bruh, there's some things that we're trying to set in motion here. We're not bothering the BLM people, the protesting people, and the other people. There's a group of us that want to see our people free. And we're not gonna constantly play this game with you on or offline. Now, if you want to go make rap songs, go make songs. But leave this thing alone, especially when it comes to critical race theory. Because this is critical for us moving forward, having to pave the way for our children. You understand what I'm saying?
Indeed.
So, sum this up by summing the article up, and what should be our takeaway.
My whole purpose for the article was to give an African-centered perspective. And like you said, write it one time, discuss it one time, you don't have to do it anymore. To make it plain, this is what critical race theory is. This is what it is from an African perspective. But what we have to do, we have to organize. We have to organize. North Carolina is trying to be the 7th state to ban critical race theory. It's coming to your state left, especially if you live in the South and in the West, in the Midwest and in the West. So we have to organize. Kwame Ture told us, organize, organize, organize. How do we do that? We talk to our friends. We talk to the people we're shooting basketball with. We talk to our family. We talk to everybody and give them a working definition of what critical race theory is and how we begin to replace that, as Nelly Fuller said, with justice.
That's deep. Let me say, give thanks and thank you for Aaliyah for your donation. Really appreciate that. And she says, yeah, she's pulling the sheets off these off these psychoacademics, man, because a lot of the stuff that they give us in school ain't worth the paper that it's written on. You understand what I'm saying? We got to unlearn that stuff in order to learn.
Right.
I put together an entire alternative Black studies course that people can take online and to counteract and to checkmate all of that madness that we're supposed to be getting in school. So let the people know how to contact you. Let the people know where to see your articles. Yeah, just let the people know.
Okay. Again, brother, I appreciate you, brother. You know what a great brother you have been in my development. Appreciate you, brother. This particular article is in the final call this week. Again, shout out to the NOI. Thank you. I'm sorry, brother.
Have a copy of it so you can hold it up so people can see it. Did you get a copy yet?
Not yet. I used to get mine on, the following weekends off the street.
Oh, okay, cool.
But it's and actually on the digital version, I think they have a picture of Public Enemy with the article.
Okay.
Yeah. So It's in the final call. My social media is Black Messiah Movement. Everything is Black Messiah Movement. YouTube, Facebook. Oh, also, we just started the African American Truth Commission. African American Truth Commission, and you can go to AfricanAmericanTruthCommission.com. But everything else is all social media is Black Messiah Movement, except for Twitter. That's at Truth Minister, and that's Minister with an A. I got that. I stole that from Griff. But as always, brother, I appreciate this, and we leave you with the Black Messiah motto: stop waiting for a savior and be one.
Anybody ask me, what are we going to do and what we supposed to do? I said, we waiting on you. This whole savior complex, yeah, it's critical, man. Love you to life, good brother, and respect as always. You know that.
It's been an honor, good brother. I appreciate you.
Give me the heads up when your next article comes out, and you can come back on and we'll discuss it. We'll make it happen.
We'll do.
Our mission is to raise the conscious level of our people by any, every, and all means necessary, good bro.
Yes, sir.
All right, really appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Right, peace.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that was our good brother, the truth, Minister of Truth, Minister Paul Scott. Go check out his article inside of the Final Call newspaper that should be out on the streets as we speak right now. Y'all already know this is Professor Griff for Serious Minds, and it's been a hell of a 60 minutes. Thank y'all very much for the comments. Really appreciate everyone. Quan, thank you very much for making this happen. Hold on. Ya'ila Allah Amin Ra Whirlwind, thank you very much for your donation, and thank you for recognizing the service. And we need to get people to understand. And these are my last words, Quan. The people don't serve me. I serve the people. All right. If you find anyone that's doing this work and you got to serve them, they're not doing this work, family. Plain and simple. Shout out to Tracy Ismail Allah. Really appreciate you. Shout out to, and thank everyone for their donations. Really appreciate that. The Cash App is $ Professor Griff if you want to donate. Or if you have anyone that you think I should interview on this show, by all means, hit me up, 678-557-2919. I love y'all to life, fam. This is Professor Griff, and I am signing out, man. Peace. Greetings, Professor Griff, public enemy, instructor for the USCCA. Today, we're going to talk about safety, training, education, and legal protection. Join us out here on the range to get some training, get some education, most of all safety, and definitely if you have to use your firearm, some legal protection. Contact us. Simply go to www.professorgriff.me or www.seriousmindsinstitute.com for safety, training, education, and legal protection. All right? Professor Griff, public enemy, and I'll see y'all in class.